Hello and welcome to the Wednesday podcast presented by This Is Ibrox. As always, I'm your host, Kyle McLean. On a Wednesday, I'm joined by two fantastic guests. Firstly, JB, you've got a pretty interesting trip over the next couple of days. How are you doing?
Yeah, not so bad. Yeah, looking forward to it. Early flight out tomorrow morning into Copenhagen and then the train across to Malmo. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Surprisingly optimistic. So it's the hope that kills you, but no doubt we'll get into that as the pod goes on.
That's a way to Copenhagen to see a terrible Danish team. That's what it's all about. And Ross, you've got a pretty interesting trip yourself, not this week, but next week all lined up. How are you prepped up for that as well?
Yeah, I mean, following Rangers is better than the trip I've got going, Kale, absolutely. So I'm jealous of JB. I wish I was going to Sweden myself. So yes, I'm away to Australia next week for a good holiday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But Rangers first, isn't it? That's why I'm here.
Desperate for that Craig Muir and Tony Vidmar autograph, aren't you, man? He's going to the other side of the planet. Listen, he could probably just phone you up, GB, and get somebody that knows who's got the guy's autographs. But anyway, listen, we're on the eve of Rangers Europa League campaign as it's just about to kick off tomorrow. Plenty to discuss in the world of Rangers. Firstly, I think we'll start on the sort of interim chairman. Gave his various interviews on Monday. Get a couple of thoughts on that. Then we'll get the thoughts on Hagi, because it's just a name that won't go away at the moment. And Vaclav, I should say, Cerny is giving a pretty interesting interview as well. Get the guy's thoughts on that, and then we'll get into talking about the European campaign this season, the expectations for it, how we expect to do tomorrow night, and how Rangers will set up, and what do we think of the new format? Because I'm just not really sure what to expect. I mean, the amount of people that I've spoken to are going, this is just really unfair, but we won't know until it all pans out. But firstly, John, JB, I'll begin with you. We've got the interview from Chairman John Gilligan. He gave it on RTV and he gave a press conference as well. That was attended by TAI's very own Tommy McIntyre. What he said when he was asked about recruitment from the CEO, what he had to say on it was, recruitment in any walk of life, guys, as you know, it's of the moment. The person we need needs to have multifaceted, appears to be good at everything, but it needs to be assertive in character. And we're looking much more to support the CEO with the chairman, and also so that the CEO would have a lot of power day to day and the chairman slightly behind. What did you make of John Gilligan's interview, his press conference, and were you happy to see somebody sort of from the sort of higher up at the club make an appearance and do a press conference? Because I can't actually remember the last time somebody did a press conference like that.
Yeah, I think surprised is definitely the word, because when there was rumours circulating that there's a 12:30 announcement on the other day, and I was thinking, what's this going to be? Is it going to be a free transfer? And there's whispers about trialists, and you're thinking, wait, what's this going to be? And then someone said, it's John Gilligan's going to be doing a press conference. And I was quite surprised. I think given the fact, and that's only because of the fact the way the club's been ran for a number of years now. I think we heard from Bisgrove once or twice, mainly when there was a good news story. John Bennett we heard from once or twice. So for him to come straight out and front it, I think it's good. I don't think he told us anything we kind of didn't already know or feel. So there was no kind of great headlines in there for us. But no, I was pleased. Bit frustrated with a couple of bits that he said. Like, it feels as if everything's just been standstill for the last few months. It kind of feels like. I appreciate that the ground stuff would have been challenging. But I mean, without delving into people's personal life, obviously John Bennett hasn't been potentially John Bennett's priority. It's been Rangers Football Club, obviously with the health concerns and stuff. So you don't know how much that's been paying the toll behind the scenes. So you've got to have the human element that sits behind it. But that said, our Rangers fans, it just makes me feel as if we're holding ourselves back at times. So with a bit of luck, he comes in. It's a little bit of a clean slate for a few people. He comes in, he spoke around funds being available for the manager in January, which the manager then in his press conference tonight has spoken about as a real positive step forward. He spoke well about Clement. I think we all like Clement. I think we all want a bit more from him. So it feels for the first time in a wee while that we're singing from the same hymn sheet a little bit, which I think we need to get back to that environment where the club, where the fans, the club, the manager, the players all feel as one, because when we are disjointed, it's a difficult place for everyone. So hoping that if everything gets everything in shape, then all good. But in terms of his chat around the search for the CEO, as I say, I would like that to have been, we're about to announce, or we're very close to announcing. But he's basically said we're back to the start again because the boy from St Mirren's jibbed us off. So, but that might then open the. You never know. It might open doors for someone. You hear about sliding doors, but if somebody who fancies a crack at that job has seen the caliber of person that we were about to announce, they might go, "Oh, you know what? If that's the level that they're looking at, I'm better than him." So I might throw my hat in the ring. This is me being ambitious. So yeah, no, wait and see. And I'll, as I say, I'm not sure if I touched on it earlier or I was just thinking it. I like the way he commented on the Dave King stuff as well, because there was talk that he's just a stooge for Dave King. He'll be a puppet man and whatever else. And I think he kind of nailed that to the mast, that's not the case. I do find it very odd that you can work with someone to do a takeover 10 years ago and you don't speak to them other than the odd game of golf. I find that mad, but there you go. So yeah, all in all, positive, a step forward, but I would have liked a little bit more, but we always do.
Yeah, no, listen, I told it was quite refreshing for there to be an appointment at Rangers that was non-related to on the pitch or the first team or whatever, and it got quite a positive reception. Everybody kind of knows John, knows of him at least anyway. So yeah, it was a good thing, and the fact it came out, and that's the thing that we've been looking for. I mean, I couldn't tell you how often chairmen, especially in the United Kingdom, albeit if they're on an interim basis or not, have actually sat in front of a press conference and sat in front of a media and taken questions like that. So fair play to the guy. A couple of comments here. RFC72 says, it not a bit backward hiring a CEO before a chairman? Surely you hire from the top down, maybe. But football just seems to be one of these weird and wonderful places where like things that you would normally do in business, it doesn't happen in a football sense. But listen, as you said, it was refreshing, bit of positive for a chairman to be appointed, and you know, I've not seen anybody disagree with him being in that position. So it is an interim basis. So yeah, hopefully something good comes of it, and fair play to John for stepping in and doing that. Ross, you've got this next fun subject to talk about. I'll be honest with everybody, the listeners, you guys here, I've been kind of avoiding this subject for a while, but it's a name that literally will not go away from Rangers, and that's Ianis Hagi. Yesterday we're all, I see your face there, Ross. We saw he was played for Rangers B team yesterday against the Huddersfield under 21s, 1-3-2. Has an assist, 2 goals. It seems like every time he's involved in that B team, he's making a move. What do you make of this situation, Ross? And I know that the managers come out on it, but I mean, we've seen players take the huff in instances like this before. Ianis Hagi's knuckling down. Where do you stand? I think you don't need to say anything. I could just pass this over to GB based on your face there.
It's just such a mess, isn't it? It's such a mess. Like having a player of Ianis Hagi's quality in the B team on the money that he's on is just ridiculous, really. So it's just a mess. I'd love the club to be able to sort this in some capacity. You know, I'd love the club to come to the table, try and get Hagi's representatives around the table and get it sorted. But clearly there's a reason why it's not happening. There's obviously rumours floating about that there's some sort of fee owed to Genk if he makes another number of appearances. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, the whole thing's a mess. And I think it shows that in football, it's so important you have the right representatives around you, because they can really throw off your whole career. I mean, I always think of Alfredo Morelos in this. How often was Alfredo Morelos' agent coming out in the press and saying that he was going to get a move? He was doing it every single transfer window. And where is he now? He's back playing in Colombia. No real future in the football. So it's a shame that Hagi's got to this position. I would probably say he needs to look at his representatives after this, because he's not going to continue at Rangers. Let's be honest. This will be his last season, regardless of whether he comes back into the side at some point, which I highly doubt. He's not going to continue here after this year. They're not going to give him a deal. So you're hoping he can remove those representatives and try and move on and forge a footballing career again. But overall, it's just a mess, Kellen. I'm kind of bored hearing about it now, but at the same time, I understand why it's a discussion, because of course, when you have a player of that quality, you'd like to think Rangers get something out of him. But I think the manager's been really, really clear on this one. He just doesn't see Hagi as part of his plans What reason that is, whether it's just purely footballing ability or if there's something going on behind the scenes, we're never going to really know. But he was very strong on it before. I think it was before the Old Firm, that press conference where he just said, "I don't see Ianis Hagi as a Rangers number 10. Just he's not in my thoughts." So I think that was pretty definitive, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Well,
That's because I've went away and come back on. That I'll tell you what happened there. The dog, after me locking that door, the dog managed to come in, so I was freaking out because, trust me, nobody wants to hear my dog on this podcast. But RFC72 here says the club should just come out and say why he's not playing with rumours of Genk wages. It just makes us look horrible for the club. And Andy Cleland here says Hagi's agent has failed him. It's just such a weird situation, especially because normally, I mean, I don't want to say it's similar to the Cantwell situation. It might well be behind the scenes, but both players taking very different options to this. And you've just got to say, fair play to the guy. He's not making a big deal about it. He's going into the B team and he's still doing a bit of a job for Rangers. But anyway, the next person that I want to come on and talk about here, JB, is Vaclav Cerny. He's been given an interview to the media, raised a wee fair few points. Specifically here, he was obviously it's a Rangers player talking about an injury, but he says, I've been through a lot during my career. I've had 2 big clubs, big injuries. So that forms how you are, your experiences from previous clubs, but also you personally. I'm just enjoying myself being here on the pitch, and I just want to give this club back what they've given me until now. As a football player, you play for a club, you play for your teammates, for your coaches, but when you're injured for so long, all of a sudden you're basically on your own. That's what's a struggle, actually. You have to find the mentality to come through it just because you have examples of players who don't come out of those injuries. Do you think that these experiences will help Cerny at Rangers, and what have you made of his time so far from the on loan Wolfsburg player?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it there, didn't you? The big first thing I took out of it was the injuries. Like a player starting an interview talking about 2 career-threatening injuries. Yeah, you are home, son. Welcome. It was. To be honest, the interview was a bit wet, wasn't it? It was a bit generic, it was a bit flat. There was nothing we could really grab onto. He didn't tell us anything we already didn't know about him. What I did like, I mean, I do like from players is players that do understand expectation. So the fact he's referenced that in terms of his time at Ajax, I think that's quite important. The fact that he will know that the fans demand the best, and that's something that we've seen. I think in terms of I still say the glimpses we've seen of him, I still don't think we've seen him have a really good run. There's no doubt there's quality there. He actually does remind me a hell of a lot of Hagi in terms of the crossover, in terms of that right-hand side. He's not lightning quick. He can beat one man, but he probably won't beat 2. Likes to come inside on that left foot, as we know. I think someone just called him a one-trick pony in the comments. But one thing is, it's a hell of a trick that he has got. He's got that kind of like lazy drag to the right-hand side if he goes that way. His goal against Motherwell, I thought, oh, here we go. This is what we needed. Like, this is going to be our Mo Salah. Not that I'm building them up. But I thought he's going to be our 10, 15 goal a season player that we need. He'll hit double figures for assists, and it just hasn't had a settled run. Clement being super safety with him, obviously not having much of a break post Euros with the Czech Republic, probably hasn't helped him. I would say probably in the short term. I thought he looked lively against Dundee for the first 25 minutes, as did the rest of the team. But then kind of filtered off. But again, some of that might be down to the illness that he'd had from the week before against Dundee United. I think he's still in that clean slate stage where I think he'll deliver massive moments for us, and we've just got to kind of wait and see. I mean, the cross against Kiev could have potentially paid his loan fee alone if that had gone a better way. Because he's probably the only player we've got in the squad that could probably do what he did. He was on the corner flag, there was nowhere to go, he dropped the shoulder, and it was a pinpoint cross for Dessers with a lovely finish in the last minute. So again, he might just need a little run of games. We might just need to be patient with him, which I know we're not as a fan base, but we might just need to be patient with him, let him just have 3 or 4 games, get it under his belt, and then hopefully we start to see the best of him. And I'd started to see a little bit of a relationship with him and Tavernier as well. I know everybody's got the consistent opinion on Tavernier. in terms of whether he should be starting or not. But if he is starting, we want him to be playing well. I don't think anyone wants James Tavernier not to play well, albeit we probably can't remember what that looks and feels like at the moment. But I watched some of the highlights on the run to Seville earlier today, so he's back in the good books until the game kicks off tomorrow. But yeah, no, he's still early days for him, but he's got to deliver. He's just got to. He's too, them three behind the main striker have to deliver us numbers, because if they're not doing it, nobody else is. We haven't got two holding midfielders that are going to chip in with goals. Tav can't run, so he's not going to be giving you the goals that he would give you in years gone by. We can't take set pieces to save our life, so we're not going to score many from set pieces. So them three number 10s, or your right, your left, and your centre, they're so important to us. So we have to get it right. There's no get away from it.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with anything you've said there, but yeah, hopefully because he's not really had a straight run of games. You remember he had it. He was he off ill for a bit, and he's been away with the Czech Republic, and he had a wee niggle and things like that as well. But as GB sort of touched on there, Ross, the rest of the interview in terms of talking about expectations and playing for Rangers, says it's similar to Ajax, so it's good to know how it feels to be in a club that demands a lot. The fans, the club itself, you need to play for trophies, and you want that as well as the players. We all realise that. Do you think this mentality will help him? And again, what have you made of his start so far at Rangers? And I saw an interesting debate going on social media earlier on, and it's, we need to give a guy like this a bit of time to run in. And then there was another side saying, no, he's a loan signing. He should be coming in and hitting the ground running. Where do you well, it looks like you agree with the former there.
Yeah, I think I do agree with the former. I think when it is a loan signing, you kind of need them to have an immediate impact. They can obviously take a little bit of time to settle, but I think we're at the point now where we need to see a little bit more from Vaclav Cerny. I don't think he's been bad at all. I think he's been fine. Came up with big moments like JB touched on there in Kyiv, great ball into the box. Obviously, that goal against Motherwell, like many others in the team that day, he was really poor at Parkhead, really bad. So I won't hold that against him too much, considering everyone was the same. But yeah, I can see how the manager wants to use him. I think he wants him to be the wide option on the right-hand side. He doesn't really see him as an inside forward or whatever. I think he wants Cerny to provide the width, which kind of allows Tavernier to do whatever he kind of likes, whether he wants to go on the outside or, as you're saying, most of the time now with Tav, he plays in the inside. He plays in midfield a lot of the time. So I think we've got to give him a bit of time to bed in still, but I'm looking to see a wee bit more now. I think there was times at the weekend where, and look, it is his first game at Ibrox, but he was overrunning the ball quite a few times. And when he was coming inside, he was kind of holding on to it a wee bit too long. I'd rather he was looking for maybe a 1-2 around the edge of the box. So that's something I'm hoping that will come with time when he plays more with his teammates. But yeah, the interview and talking about the expectations and all that, I Rangers to be aware of that as soon as they walk through the doors. It's not a club you can kind of come here and just get by. You're going to have to deliver. JB's bang on. We haven't had enough numbers from players in those positions over the last few years. And I'm sure we'll come on to it. Oscar Cortez is one that I'm looking for numbers this season, and Cerny the same. And I'm looking for numbers in those wide areas. Cyril Dessers has done really well at the start of this season to get numbers, but I think you still need it. Even Tom Lawrence, I think you should be getting a wee bit more out of him. I know he scored that great goal at Dundee United, but as a number 10, you need to provide numbers. So yeah, look, I want to see a wee bit more from him. Probably deserves a wee bit more time. But I definitely agree with that comment. A loan signing has to come in and make an impact straight away. And it's not you're not signing a boy that's 18, 19 or something like coming up from the Premier League or something like that. Vaclav Cerny's pretty experienced. He's played in a few leagues now around Europe. He should be able to get used to the environment pretty quickly. So yeah, I'm looking to see a wee bit more. Hopefully that's tomorrow night.
Yeah, totally agree. I think tomorrow night is going to be part of the, an acid test for him, because he's going to have a bit of space and that. But anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. Let's start talking about Europe or the Europa League so far. Obviously, we're kicking off tomorrow in Sweden against fairly familiar opponents, Malmo FC. In that draw, in the home side, Rangers are playing at home. Lyon, Steaua Bucharest, we'll call them for the sake of it. Tottenham and Union Saint-Gilloise. Away, we've got Malmo, Nice, Olympiacos, and Man United. JB, I'll come to you first. are you looking forward to this new sort of league format, and how do you think it's all going to work? Do you think this is exciting to see such radical changes in terms of Europa League this year?
Yeah, I think it is. I think the manager touched on it in his press conference earlier. It's something I hadn't considered. It's double the amount of work for the coaching staff and the analyst guys, because instead of scouting for 3 teams, you're now scouting for 8, which must be a bit different. Hopefully, based on the fact that we do like to sign players that we play against in Europe, it gives us 8 different teams to. We've got a bigger scouting network now. So voila. But yeah, no, I think it'll be fresh. I think the fact that we've been quite solid in Europe, haven't we, since Gerrard? We've got into the Europa League. We've known that if we win the group, we haven't got to play a playoff round, and if you're second, you've got a playoff round against a team of a similar standard. So yeah, I think it'll be good. I think we have been there's no doubt we've been unlucky with the draw. To get into all the work we've done over the years to get into pot 1, you'd have thought we'd have been rewarded with a couple of easy ties. That's probably one thing where this new format hasn't helped us, because of the fact that we haven't been able to. It's kind of everybody's in the same boat, aren't they? So everyone's going to play 2 teams from pot A, everyone's going to play 2 teams from pot B, so on and so forth. So yeah, I think, ask me at the end of it and I'll tell you what I think of it. But as we go into it, I think it's 8 really interesting ties. In terms of looking after ourselves, I think 9 points will probably see you out. And if I'm thinking that, I think we've got to win tomorrow, or we can't lose. It's not like one of these games where you're head to head with Malmo and you think, right, we might need to beat them in the head to head when it comes to the group. Because sometimes, if we were playing Malmo in a 4-team group, I'd be saying, right, let's go over there, solid draw, we'll get them back to Ibrox, we beat them on the head-to-head. It's not like that. So it's almost a case of you've got to go for it. And I dare say if we can win, then we need to win comfortably. But if we lose, we can't lose by many, because that league table is going to be... you might have a handful of teams all on the same points. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and some really good games ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There's some fantastic fixtures in there that I think we're all really, really looking forward to. Ross, as JB sort of touched on it there, like, and I think the manager touched on it, that we actually have a tougher Europa League draw than some of the Champions League draws, with some of the teams that are in both competitions. But I'm struggling to define what I think are sort of the realistic expectations of Rangers in Europe this year. I mean, especially, the past few years we have been relatively successful. And Europe had some great fixtures, some great wins against some good opposition. But here, I just don't know how to expect. I don't know if it's one of these situations where you don't mind going out of Europe. I suppose it will be January. I was going to say before Christmas, but it'll be just into January with this new format. But where should we be on this? Should we expect them to go and do really well in all the games, or is this just maybe this is the sort of experimental playground for Clermont here?
Yeah, I think my mindset's slightly changed on this the last couple of weeks. I think I was quite fearful coming into this, actually, because of the draw we've got. JB touched on it there. Yeah, we've been very unlucky for a pot 1 side, so we're just gonna have to deal with that. There are a couple of great ties in there, to be honest with you. Like, playing Spurs are away to Manchester United. That's great. I mean, that's what I want Europe when you come into these stages. You want to test yourself against some of the biggest clubs. So I take that as a positive. But yeah, initially I was quite fearful because I thought it could really derail our season. But I think with the way we are at the moment, and I think we all recognise the squad maybe isn't ready for this level of competition. I think Rangers have to use this as an opportunity to build confidence. And I think what's good as well is you're going into these ties. There's always expectations playing for Rangers, right? But I would imagine most of the support accept this is going to be difficult, right, to progress through this. I agree with GB. You're probably near about 8 or 9 points. But I think this is a good opportunity to develop this squad, give a lot of these players that haven't played at this level experience of playing at this level, and really having no fear. I've looked at this Malmo side the last couple of days. They're flying in the domestic league, and obviously they play through the summer, don't they? So they're well into their season, so they'll be ready for this.
Yeah.
But it's not a side that I think you fear in Europe. Like, don't get me wrong, there's good players in there, but it's not a team that I think we should fear. So I think Rangers should go out there and I think they should just play the way that they've been playing. And in the last couple of fixtures, I think they've just got to go for it. I think this is an opportunity for Clement to build some consistencies in his side, and because the expectations are so low, I'm hoping they play with a wee bit more freedom. So yeah, I'm the same as JB. I think he said it at the start of this, like, quietly confident. I actually have a good feeling about this tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to it because, yeah, it's a European tie, and over the last few years, Rangers have done really well on this stage. So yeah, I think you try and take advantage of the lower expectations, and you try and build a bit of consistency in the team, and hopefully these players that haven't had experience at this level can get it, and they can develop from there. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. My mindset has changed a lot in this because I was dreading this really when the draw first came out. Just looked at it, thought, oh, this is going to absolutely kill us here, confidence-wise. But actually now I think the players can look at it as a stage to go, experience this sort of atmosphere and these environments, because a lot of them won't have before, and hopefully progress. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Kyle. I think the lower expectations we can take advantage of.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there, and especially after watching that Clement press conference when he was talking about, I'm looking forward to seeing how some of the younger players react to this when they are playing, especially Cortez, Diomande, Jefte as well. I'm sure we'll come on to talk about him. Egaman is a player that I'm really, really looking forward to seeing in this competition as well. But Ross, I'm going to stick with you here for this wee next question here, and it's looking ahead to tomorrow's opponents, Malmo. You sort of touched on them there. You said that they're top of the Allsvenskan. And by the way, I've been looking at Malmo so much, I'm now confident that I can spell that word out, which is I'm delighted with. I said they're about 10 points clear at the top of the league at the moment, but that could change. I was stunned when I found out there was live games in the league going on that were sort of kicking off about 6 o'clock, which was fair enough. But they got put out by Sparta Prague in the Champions League qualifiers. I was reading this article. This will, as a wee football manager geek, this will absolutely be right up your street here, Ross. It was from a wee article from TFA, and it was sort of describing Henrik Rydström's style of play. And it says, when watching Malmo, what becomes apparent very quickly is the fact that the side has no set structure and that they look to employ in possession. Although primarily focusing on progressing the ball through the wide areas for the most part, players in the side do not look to deliberately occupy specific spaces in a specific area. The players do not use specific spaces as a primary reference point in possession, but instead in possession they give the ball to sort of ball carriers that allow them to provide options on it there. This is either going to be very good for Rangers or very bad for Rangers, and again, I can't quite make my mind up on it. How should Rangers set up against this style of play where it's more focused on creating space and there's no... how are we going to track runners if that's the way they're set up, basically?
Well, it certainly sounds like a fluid system, and I think at times we've struggled against sides like that. I think we've struggled with sides that make a lot of off-the-ball runs, and I think we've seen it plenty of times where our fullbacks or our midfielders switch off. So I think it's going to be difficult in that aspect. If you look at it from a positive point of view, I think if a team are playing in that way and they don't have a lot of structure, you are hoping there's a lot of space when the ball turns over. And I think we've seen it in recent weeks. The Rangers have been getting better at that. I actually thought they were a lot better at that at the weekend against Dundee. They just didn't seem to have that final killer pass at times, but they were dangerous on the break. There was a couple of times where Barami and Lawrence got free, and maybe Dessers didn't get the finish at the end. So I think there'll be a lot of space for us tomorrow night. They do have a couple of good players in there, Malmo. I think the striker, I think it's Tellin. He's got 14 this season, I'm sure I read. And I listened to their manager talk earlier in the press conference. I think he was talking about Anders Christensen. I think he's the number 10. And yep. I'm sure he said in his press conference that essentially when they first came in, their system was really just about getting him the ball. They recognised he was the best player, and that was the kind of way to build around it. They've obviously progressed since then. I think Peña in midfield's really strong as well. And they've obviously got experience at the back with Pontus Jansson playing for Leeds and Brentford in the Premier League. So, like I said in my previous answer, I think they're a good side. I think they've shown that this season, but I would back Rangers to be able to exploit them on the break. And I think that's probably the way the game will go. I think their manager again spoke about today, that they want control. That's kind of the way they play. They want control of the game. So you would imagine that's probably keeping the possession most of the time, and they'll try and exploit you with kind of off the ball runs and behind and things like that. So yeah, I'm hoping that Rangers get a lot of space and they can try and exploit that. I think that again comes down to how good a night Cyril Dessers has, to be honest with you, because I think at times when we try and play up to him, it doesn't really come off. I thought in Kyiv that night, he'd done a little bit better on that in the second half, and I think that's why we started to get a wee bit more joy. So I'm hoping that you can get a Cyril Dessers tomorrow that can contribute to kind of all phases of the game to allow us to build, because I hate going back to it, but that's what Alfredo Morelos gave you in Europe, wasn't it? You knew that even if you were coming up against a good side, you had an outball, even like a Ryan Kent on the left-hand side. We've kind of lost that with Cortez tomorrow. It's likely to be Barami. So you maybe don't have that pace on the left-hand side. You're probably going to have it from Cerny on the right. But yeah, look, I think Rangers will probably know they're in a game. I think they'll know that we're going up against a side that are going to want to keep the ball and have a lot of control and possession. But I do think there's an element of risk that Malmo are going to play with, which should help us. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be an interesting game. The manager really spoke in depth about the way they play football, so it's going to be interesting to see tomorrow how they set up and whether it's actually all that. To be honest with you, I'm not sure it's going to be. So yeah, it's going to be a good watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. Andy Cleland here says the Malmo coach is funny in today's presser, is swearing like a trooper. But yeah, it's weird. Like, I just don't know where this kind of beef comes from. Like, they just seem very, like, they just want to get at us, especially that wee video. But that's the type of stuff. Yeah, if you're an opposition manager, you're showing that to all your players in the dressing room, going, look, don't let this happen to them again. But listen, anyway, JB Ross identified some of the danger man there. Chiesi Thelen. I think he's got 14 goals this year for them. I don't think he's scored in any of the Champions League qualifiers, which was maybe something to cling on to. Eric Botheim they have as well, who's scored 11 goals from him. And Anders Christensen, as Ross said, they're really good. Any other players that you've seen that you've identified, and how should Rangers set up against such a what on paper seems to be a really, really fluid team, as the manager himself is telling us that's the way they want control? How do we go in and disrupt that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that we go out and put what we call a Rangers Thursday night performance in. I think we all know what we mean by that, like a really hard working, everyone up for it. We'll probably need a wee bit of luck on the night. We'll probably ride our luck at times. But I think we've got more than enough quality. This team's not. I was just about to say Eric Bock. I know he's one of Reese's favourites. He's one that I think we'll have to keep an eye on. He's like one of them players, isn't he, that you're linked with for years, but the move just never ever turns up. I always remember we were linked with Yarmolenko years ago, and he popped up the other week. But yeah, I think in terms of personnel, at the end of the day, if we're fearing teams like Malmo, we shouldn't be in the tournament. Let's have it right. Do you know what I mean? They're a minnow of Europe. And unfortunately, if we don't perform on the night, we could look like a minnow of Europe. We've proved over the years, if we're up for it, then we can do it. Now, one thing I would say is there's not a lot of players within that squad who have been round the course and done it. There's a few players obviously got experience last year. I'm hoping tomorrow we go and put a Benfica type performance in, or a Kiev away type performance, or a Kyiv performance, depending if you want to say it properly. So I think in terms of that, if we can go and make ourselves hard to beat first and foremost, game hasn't got to be won in the first 10-15 minutes. I think that's one of the things that reading a few of the scout reports, they said they come out flying and try and get games won in the first half. And if you've got a better opposition, if you're better than the opposition across all of the pitch and you work harder than everyone, then you're going to have one hell of a chance. And we see that, unfortunately, with the team across the city. They've showed the model that if you come out against inferior teams and you run them for the first 10-15 minutes and you can score one, you can score two, it's good like Vienna. So we've just got to hope that we get off to a good start. We haven't got to get too excited in the first 20 minutes. Just try and contain, feel our way in, and then hope that the quality that we have got, there's good quality in there. I'm similar to Ross's point earlier, what we were discussing around, I still don't see where the goals are coming from. If it's not Dessers or if it's not a Tavernier penalty, you're not putting your mortgage on anyone else. So that's a bit that we really need to get right. And tomorrow's probably a great time to do that. I think we're going to really miss Hefty down the left-hand side. I think that outlet for us, I think over the season is going to be fantastic. I think he actually gives you more than, he certainly gives you more than Barisic in the latter years. He gives you more than Yilmaz, as much as I think we all like what Yilmaz can do. But unfortunately, when fit is the old classic we have to use on a Rangers pod, the Rangers bingo. So Sterling, I'm thinking we'll get to team predictions probably at some point, but I'd imagine we're going to see Sterling in there, which tells me we'll set up solid on that side. So maybe you can afford a little bit more of a luxury in a Bajrami in front of him. But one thing, I don't think anybody has ever picked the Philip Clement starting 11 so far since he's been with us. So who knows? It could be a Kieran Dowell masterclass incoming. So there you go. I did jinx Tom Lawrence before Dundee United away, saying I just hope he's not playing in a 1-0 Tom Lawrence win. So there you go. Get your money on Kieran Dowell tomorrow. But yeah, no, as I said, touched on earlier, looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting over there. I think it's the you know what, the fans are going to be in good voice. It's not going to be an intimidating atmosphere like we've seen in stadiums over the last few years. I think the attendance is 22,000. There'll be 1,000 Rangers fans I imagine, poked away in a corner and fans dotted around. So yeah, I think we've just got to go there. And I think Ross touched on it earlier in terms of there's going to be a lot of lads there that are going to be experiencing a lot of this for the first time as well. So Barron coming in, experiencing that. I don't know whether Robin Proppers maybe played in European football before, albeit he's played in Holland, but has he played in European football? Not too sure. I know they had a great season. Has he?
I think he might have done for 20 in the Europa League, stuff like that.
Yeah, they've been there or thereabouts, haven't he? But it'll definitely be different playing in Europe for Rangers with the support that we'll bring. So yeah, I'm hoping we see a surprise in the 11, a little Igmani start or something might spark it up, but I won't hold my breath.
Yeah, no, listen, in terms of that Kieran Dowell stuff, I hope that's not some inside Scouse intel you've got there, man, on that.
Definitely
because you've got Rangers fans panicking that are watching, tuning into this right now. Ross, before I go on and move on to the sort of press conference, just talk about that. This is an interesting point here. Andy Cleland said this, and I noticed it, and I almost half didn't believe it when I saw it. But no VAR in Sweden. Do you think that's going to make a difference? I think that's going to impact the players sort of psychologically when they with making challenges and stuff like that, or do you just think nah?
I thought that they would have to use it in Europa League. No, is it not?
No, I think it'll be in play, but they're not used to it.
Aye, so there's no VAR in their domestic. But yeah, maybe I don't know if it'll have too much of an impact, to be honest with you. But I would imagine it would be quite strange for the Malmo players that are maybe not used to it. But then I suppose if you're playing Champions League qualifiers and things, you've got a wee bit of experience of it. So yeah, I think it's just their domestic league. I don't think they would be able to reject it as such for the European competition. Could you imagine that? No, we don't do it here. No, you're not allowed. That would be amazing. Yeah, the 4 games they play at home, they just go, no, rejected. We're not using that. So yeah, it's a good spot from Andy, but I don't think it applies in Europe.
We'll steamroller right over that point right there. Conor Barron, we're talking about the press conferences there. Conor Barron spoke to the press in Malmo. It was just a couple of you know what it's like when players are out there, they kind of say the sort of same things, but it's a wee chance to talk about Conor Barron. He said, tomorrow's another opportunity for us as a club to get the 3 points. This is the start. We're growing and building as a team each week. We know where we are. We are nowhere near the finished article, but we keep building and growing each week. What do you think of his comments there, and what have you actually thought of Conor Barron at Rangers so far this season, Ross?
Well, that's a message straight from the manager, isn't it? You know, we're just going to keep building every single week. He's definitely got a future as a manager, because that is that kind of speak, I suppose. Conor Barron, I think, probably has to be the signing of the summer so far for Rangers. I think he's been the standout. I think we had a discussion on this earlier, Kale. I think he's been very, very consistent, which I think is something that's quite difficult coming into a Rangers side when you haven't played at this sort of level before in terms of the expectations at this club. You know, playing for Aberdeen in the SPFL is very different to playing for Rangers. So credit to him. He's came in and spoke about this in previous podcasts. He's grabbed his opportunity. You know, there's been a midfield slot up for grabs this summer, and he's went, I'm taking that. That's mine. And fair play to him, because I really don't think you would name a Rangers 11 now without Connor Barron. He's one of the first names you would put in the team sheet, which is incredible. So fair play to him. I thought again at the weekend he was really good. What Connor Barron does really well is all the basics. He does all the basics very, very well. He has a good range of passing. He covers the ground really, really well, can put his foot in positionally. He knows where to be at the right time. So just all round, he's a very good midfielder and someone that can definitely play in a 2 for us, which is encouraging. I think he still maybe needs someone else next to him long term, maybe a wee bit more experience that will help him and push him on, and maybe give him a wee bit more freedom. But I think overall, I think everyone's the same. The Rangers support, we've all been really impressed. I think there's been numerous games this season where you could have said Connor Barron is man of the match. I think you could have said that 3 or 4 times. So, yeah, I think he's been really, really good. I think there's still another level for him to get to be honest with you, which is, again, a really encouraging sign. And I think you could say that about quite a few players we've signed. Jeffy falls into that category as well, where I've been really, really impressed with what I've seen, but I know there's more. So that's really exciting, because I don't think we've had that for a while now. Or if we do get it, they end up getting injured for a long time. You never see them again. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, Connor Barron, really, really impressed, and he will definitely start that game tomorrow night.
Yeah, oh well, there we go. That's an interesting statement right there. I suppose if he's been out for the press, because one of my questions, and in fact, I'll just ask it just now, GB. Who do you think is our two best central mid? What do you think is our best central midfield partnership at the club? Is it Connor Barron, Diomande? Is it Raskin? Is this a game perfect for Raskin to come in, or who do you think should be the central midfield pair in the club?
I don't think the manager knows. So if he doesn't know, we've got no chance. I think I could guess, but literally his name's out of a hat, because I don't think we've seen 2 players play more than 2 consecutive games together. In terms of what do I think he'll go with tomorrow, I think it'll be Barron, Diomande and Lawrence. I really don't like the shape that we have at the moment. I wish that midfield 3 was a bit more flatter, because I think the personnel that we've got would suit us a lot more. Times of old, I would like to have seen us going in tomorrow's game with like a Barron, Diomande and a Raskin, and just go really busy little midfield 3, you know, firing into tackles, good in possession, comfortable, can move. Lawrence is a crab when you haven't got the ball, so we just know that we're gonna miss that. We're gonna miss any form of press from him in possession. You're brand new. Showed us quality against Dundee United, glimpses of quality against Dundee. So there's no doubt. He was heavily involved in our good performance away at Benfica, Tom Lawrence, in that role. I don't think he's particularly good at against certain personnel. I think about to Kiev at the start of the season. I think Lawrence started in the 10 and everyone was just like facepalm emojis all over the place. So, yeah, I think our mid are stronger. The 2 I'd like to see is Barron and Raskin. Now, where that puts Diomande is another question. I'd like to see him, as I say, in the 3. But Barron and... If you're going to pin me, I'm going to say Barron and Raskin. But players do get better. Players do get better the more that we don't see them. So, and I think that Raskin might fall into that category. I'm still judging Raskin on his debut when he come off the bench and just look like an absolute whale, Peter. So, yeah, wait and see.
No, listen, again, it's hard with you said there. I can tell by Ross's face that he's going for Barron and Hagi in the centre of that midfield. So, we'll stick with that.
You got to play Diomande, man. There's no doubt about it. He's got to play. So I agree a lot with what JB said there in terms of I don't think we play the kind of optimal shape for the midfielders we have. But if you had to press me on the 2, then yeah, it would have to be Barron, and it would have to be Diomande. Raskin would have to take a place on the bench. But I'm with JB. I'd like to see him a lot more. I think he can offer something a little bit different to that Rangers midfield, but it clearly looks like the manager does not fancy him. I think that's obvious. He's been here for quite a while now, and Raskin cannot get into the side, and he's not been injured for a while now. So I think he is one that will move on eventually. He will look for a different opportunity because he's not going to get the game time here. So it's unfortunate. I think there's a good player there, but as what it is, that's football, isn't it? Managers just sometimes don't take to certain players, and it looks like he's one of them.
Yeah, again, it's hard to disagree there. It is interesting because Raskin had such high expectations when he came into the club. I mean, he was a player I was absolutely delighted we signed, given his reputation over there for Standard Liège in Belgium. But I'll stick with you, Ross, in this one. Obviously, red card for Jefte against Dynamo Kyiv means that he misses the game. It frustrates the life out of me that he cannot feature in this game, because I think out of all the players we've brought in, he's arguably been the one that I have been most impressed with. Jefte coming in, I just thought he would maybe be behind Yilmaz, but he seems to have been taken to Scottish football really well, and I've been impressed with him. But what are we going to do tomorrow night at left back, Ross?
Oh, I know. I've seen a lot of debate about this, about Robbie Fraser, and if you can't give the boy an opportunity at this time, when can you? But I mean, that's quite a stretch. It's a Europa League game away at Malmo. That's quite a big jump for Robbie Fraser. I've got no problem with putting Robbie Fraser in more for domestic fixtures for Rangers and giving him more of an opportunity. That's fine, but I think away in a European tie is quite a big one. So I wouldn't be putting Robbie Fraser in. I think it will be Dujon Sterling at left back. I think it's the obvious choice, to be honest with you. I think that also comes because there's not going to be an Oscar Cortez on the left. It's likely going to be a Barami. Defensively, we don't really know how good Barami is yet, so maybe does that give him a little bit more cover? And maybe they'll shift the play to the right and look to exploit the left. I'm not sure, but I know that, well, I feel confident that Sterling will play at left back tomorrow, because Clement doesn't really come across to me as a manager who's going to take a risk in these moments, is he? I don't think he's going to throw a young player in at this point. So I think it'll be Sterling at left back, Kyle. I can't see any other way about it. I think he will be the one that plays. Unfortunately, again, for Dujon Sterling, spoke about this at the weekend. I think he's suffering a little bit at the moment, because I don't think central midfield's his best position. It looks like we're playing him there. It looks like we've kind of decided that's probably going to be in his main slot for the season. We're then moving him to left back, and I think we can all agree then that defensively, Dujon Sterling's great, but when you're playing on your kind of opposite side, you're naturally going to come inside. You're going to narrow the pitch, so that's a difficult one for us as well. So it's not an optimal selection, but I'm pretty sure that will be the replacement for Jefte tomorrow. I mean, that, and going back to that, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous we're dealing with this, because it was never a red card ever. Still no over that. Ridiculous, seriously. I really wish that it went to some sort of VAR review in the night, or it'd been a straight red or something, and then it would have been rescinded. The fact that it's a double yellow and you can't do anything about it is such a ridiculous ruling. That needs to change. That if a player's being sent off, regardless of whether it's a second yellow or a straight red, it should be reviewed. Simple as that. Because it's a game-changing moment. That's what they talk about in VAR. We review game-changing moments, penalties, offsides, blah, blah, blah. That's a game-changing moment, losing a man. It should really be reviewed. So, yeah, you can clearly tell I'm not over that Kyiv result yet.
I know, man. The people of Australia will be hearing about this red card for sure. But JB, I'm going to chuck something out here. So if you remember, see when Clement came in, and was it the first or second game in Europe that he played? I'm sure it was left back we did not have available to us, and he changed it to a back three, back five. Can you see him doing something like this to sort of accommodate us not having a first choice left back, or do you think agree with Ross, it's just going to be Sterling's just going to get punted in there?
No, he's too boring for that, isn't he? I think that would be. I think that would be the. No. In short, no. I would take Seema playing. I would take Seema playing left back for us tomorrow, mind you. But and Ben Davis on corners. But
I know.
Oh God. No. And the frustrating thing for me is I think we've actually got the personnel to actually do it. I think I've said it for years. How our management teams over the years, going all the way back to Gerrard, it wasn't something that we explored more. If you think about Tav when he was at his best, Barisic when he was at his best, them two in a five should just work. Now maybe it doesn't. Maybe they've trialed it in training games, bounce games, and it just doesn't click. You don't know, but. I remember when I think I might have said this on last week's pod, when he first come in, and some of the reviews they said, oh, he plays to the opposition and he's not scared to change his shape or whatever. He just doesn't, does he? So no, I think we've got what we've got, and it'll be a 4-2-3-1, and we'll enjoy it.
Right, my last question, JB, and this is for you before we sort of get into who we actually think will be playing starting tomorrow. Andy Cleland here says, I have a feeling Bajrami will start at 10 tomorrow, Lawrence at 10 against Hibs on Sunday. Do you agree with that? Is tomorrow the day that we are finally going to see, Barami in the number 10 position for Rangers, the position that he was brought in to play?
I would have said yes this morning, but then after the Cortez news, I'm probably thrown in the fact that I don't know who I'd put left. I don't want to see Robbie. Yeah, I mean, could you throw him in? Could you throw him in there with Sterling sitting? Do you know what I mean? Because Sterling's not going to give you as much offensive, but then you're then risking Igaman and Dessers both being on the pitch at the same time, which then gives you the problem ahead of Sunday. So the lack of squad option probably might have to determine the team that we have to play. I know we laughed about Kieran Dowell earlier, but Kieran Dowell might have to come in on Sunday to cover a Lawrence or a Bajrami or a Cerny. Do you know what I mean? We're in the bones of it. That we might need to do something like that. We haven't got a lot of offensive options, unfortunately. There's Robbie Fraser. Could he play one up? I'll be honest. I mean, I know he's young. When I say he's young, he's not young in the grand scheme of things. The boy playing at Barcelona who scored winning goals in European Championships, that's young. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't see it with Fraser. As some Fraser up, if he got released, he wouldn't get another SPL club. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It'd be in the Championship, so I wouldn't be starting him in a European game. But I hope he proves me wrong. And the same, I'd probably put McCausland in the same boat as well. Thought he'd done well when he come on the other day, showed a couple of flashes. But again, I don't think he's good enough to start a European game for Rangers based on what we've got. So I think I just think he'll play. I would like to see him in the 10. I watched him quite closely for an extended game against Georgia just after he signed. I think he played about 60, 70 minutes and he played very central. And you could see the whole game plan for Albania was to get the ball to him. He's got lots of quality. He's not lightning quick, but he actually covers the ground quite quickly. I know that's a contradiction, but he seems to have this stride that seems to cover the ground really well, but as opposed to his legs going lightning. So he's... I'm looking forward to seeing him in his natural position, but I think if we can be a bit more fluid in and out of possession, Bajrami cutting inside and Lawrence maybe dropping a little bit deeper, that allowed Hefty to come forward against Dundee. So I'd just like to see that three behind Dessers really working hard, really covering each other, dropping deep if they need to drop deep for a touch and see how they go, because technically on the ball, they've got it. But the whole thing is goals win games, and we need them three to be the three behind Dessers to be delivering, and there's no better time than to start tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be. What a great time to start it would be tomorrow away at Sweden, especially for UGB. Wessel 18 says, if Fraser has a long-term future at the club, I give Fraser a start with extra protection and try and keep our balance. Yeah, it will be interesting to see who starts there at left back. But Ross, let's get your predicted lineup for tomorrow and why you think some of those players are going to be there. And look, I was going to ask about Cortez, but I seen your tweet earlier on saying you were refusing to talk about it, so I'm not going to ask you about it. All right. So what's your predicted lineup for tomorrow, please?
Well, on Cortez, it looks like we're just unlucky constantly, isn't it? That's just the case for Rangers. So, picked up a knock. I mean, honestly, 3.5 million we've spent on this boy and we can't get him fit. So
if Clement had come out and said it was Hagi that gave him the knock, that might solve all the problems with Hagi. Nobody will want him back in the first team, all right?
That would have been the easiest way. Like when we were absolutely rotten against Birmingham when he came back in and said Campbell wanted to leave. That was shit. That was the decoy, wasn't it? So yeah, he actually left the room and came back to do that. So fair play, manager was smart on that one. Look, on Oscar Cortez, it's just unlucky. I think the manager summed up in his press conference that I think we all know there's a lot of potential in there for Oscar Cortez. We just need to get him on the park. We need to get him a consistent run of 5 to 10 games, I think, to really know what you've got, because I still think we're in that position where we don't actually know the level that we have here and maybe how much development we've got to go with Cortez. So okay, hopefully it is just a couple of weeks and he's back maybe after the next international break and we get a run of fixtures. As for the team, I don't think there'll be many surprises tomorrow, actually. I think Clement will go with pretty much the same lineup we've seen at the weekend. I think it'll be Butland, Tav, Suter, Proper. I think it'll be Sterling in at left back, like I said. I think he'll bring Diamondi back into midfield next to Barron. And I think he'll go with the same front four. I think he'll go Barami, Lawrence, Cerny, and Dessers. Few reasons why. I mean, Cerny missed the Dundee United game, so there's one less game in the tank there. So I think he'll continue to play him. Lawrence, he seems to be absolutely convinced that this is a boy that can play every 3 or 4 days, which I think is something we never thought for Tom Lawrence based on the injury record he's had. I don't think we have many options on the left with Barami. I think JB's right. I'm not really sure whether I want to see a Ross McCausland on the left-hand side, and I think we've seen so far that Egeman, when he's played, certainly looks to be a central player. I think he might be slightly wasted if you play him out on the left-hand side. Desser's an obvious one. And in terms of I think the defence speaks for itself. But in terms of the midfield, like I said before, I'd love to see a change of shape, but it's not going to happen, right? This is the system the manager wants to play. And I think in a European tie like this, I think this is where you'll probably see the best of Diamondi when he does have a little bit more space. He will have a little bit more time in the ball. This is where you're going to see the level of player. People always laugh when I do this comparison, but it was very, very similar to Glenn Kamara. So you've seen the best of Glenn Kamara was always European ties when he had that little bit more time, kind of suited to kind of the way he was at international football with Finland as well. You always see that level up. So I think this game will suit Diamondi, and Barron next to him deserves his start. So yeah, no real surprises for me tomorrow, I think, Kyle. I don't think we're at that stage with the squad still because of the injuries again we've picked up. I don't expect too much rotation from the manager at this point. I think he'll be trying to use the Europa League, like I said earlier, as an opportunity to build. And I think that's why he'll go with consistency. So, yeah, Barami, like to see him at number 10 eventually. I think that's probably his best position, even though showed really good spells on the left-hand side at the weekend. Shows he's like an intelligent kind of forward player. He can, because Lawrence was dropping deeper, which was allowing Barami to move narrow, and it worked really well because Jen Jeffrey had the whole of the left-hand side to bomb down. Tomorrow's going to be slightly different, obviously, because we don't have that from Jeffrey. So Barami's maybe going to have to sit wider and keep the width. So it's an interesting dynamic. But yeah, I don't expect any surprises tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's fair there, and that's you. You've hit your own score points there in terms of getting Kamara mentioned into the podcast as well. So you'll be absolutely delighted with that.
Miss him so much, man.
Well, there we go. Butland RFC 72 says Butland to have Suter, Proper, Sterling, Barron, Raskin, Dio, Barami, Dessers, and Cerny. There is no Lawrence in that team. JB, what's your thoughts on the starting lineup for tomorrow, please?
Yeah, without being too boring, I think I've kind of said the exact same as Ross in terms of what I think it'll be. What I want it'll be would probably be a Raskin in for Lawrence and Diamandi maybe up a wee bit further, or a Dare to Dream flatter. But yeah, let's just wait and see. That's one thing about Clement in Europe. He does seem to have a bit of a battle plan, whether it be a subtle tweak or something a bit different. Could we see Diamandi coming in off the left, just as something a wee bit different, a bit more of a 4-4-2 at times, a bit of a diamond, but. No, I foresee the team that Ross touched on there. I can't really argue with that. We haven't mentioned the Dutch lad as well. That could be an outsider. I think Raskin not coming on the weekend I found interesting. Now, whether that's just because he's probably more likely than not, he's probably carrying a knock and he didn't want to risk it. But does that tell me that he's in line for a potential start as well? So, one to watch.
Yeah, no, definitely. And listen, I think that just about sums it up nicely there. So yeah, we'll be back on Sunday. It'll be myself and Craig after the Hibs game. The jury's still out on that VAR in Sweden. I was having a look when you guys were talking just to check about it. I think Sweden looks like it's been totally rejected, but I'm sure somebody in the comments will let us know if there is VAR there tomorrow or if there's no VAR. But I'm just going to leave it here on this comment by RFC72. He says, if you want to progress, we need to beat Steaua Bucharest, Malmo and USG, and Malmo is tomorrow. So that will set us up nicely. But just want to say thank you to everybody tuning in, watching. Thank you for that. Remember, give us a like, share, subscribe, leave a wee comment if you can. And we'll see you all again soon.